gonna be right back. I'm gonna
Okay.
get my computer, okay?
All right.
All right.
She's not allowed in here.
You know what? You can do whatever you want. You can kick him in the shin.
No, you don't.
Chris, out.
This is my phone.
No, it's not. And I have something important I'm doing today. Alright guys, can you sit at the first 2 sets of desks for me, please?
Oh, right, we are doing this.
Yeah.
Remember for teaching demonstration?
Oh yeah.
Chris, what? Oh man, I have to.
One.
Alright guys, if you could have a seat for me. No, Delilah, first 2 sets of desks, please. Please.
So it's next to me, next to Lacey.
There's a do now on the board. What if we don't know the time that we It doesn't have to be a time. So you want to use the words first, next, after, then, last, and finally as examples.
What if you don't have that many steps to use all those words?
Use as many as you have then. So if you only have 3 steps in your routine,
Wake up, get dressed, brush my teeth, use the bathroom.
so use your keywords
You know what?
to describe those.
Hey, have your military captain give me a call.
Take about 5 minutes, and then we'll go over what you have. First, I get out of bed. Then, do you? I feel like you do because you come here.
What if she gets forced out of bed? She didn't get out of bed. I did not know.
We don't eat in the classroom. It's not my rule. You know it's a school rule. You doing okay, Joseph? Alright, let's take a minute to finish up. anybody like to share? Miles?
Alright, so first thing I'll do is I'll wake up, get out of bed, and just get dressed in school uniform, so I have to, and then I'll use the bathroom after I brush my teeth, and then I gotta take my medicine. And before I leave for school, I just go back to sleep.
Okay, so I counted 5. First, then,
Yeah.
after, then.
No. You count first, then, after, next, last.
Okay. Damon?
So, Tyson, first I get dressed, then I go downstairs and eat breakfast. After that, I go brush my hair, and then finally we leave.
Perfect. Lacey?
First, I wake up, brush my teeth, and get dressed. Next, I pack my lunch and grab my book bag. Last, I put my shoes on and go to school.
Very good. Anybody else want to share? Okay, so I'll share mine. First, I wake up and go to the closet. Then, I pick my clothes out for the day. After that, I go downstairs and eat breakfast. Finally, I look for my keys to go get my car to leave. Because I lose them about every day.
Yeah, that's usually everyone when they have car keys.
So this is an example of called sequencing of events. We sequence out the events that happened throughout our morning to give a full picture of what our morning routine looks like. So can anybody tell me what they think sequencing of events means? Miles?
Putting a series of events in chronological order from first to last.
Very good. Chronological is a key word that we'll get to in just a few minutes. So, the textbook definition of sequencing of events is the order in which an event occurs in a story. So a story can include fictional text or non-fictional text, which is a majority of what we read in class for our informational articles. Can anybody tell me why they think it's important? Damon.
Because, like, if, for, like, my routine, if I said I leave, then I get dressed, that would be saying I left in the car, then I got dressed in the car, which would be incorrect.
Right.
And be
Unless
bizarre.
you did.
Right. Unless you did, which
That
I
would be
hope you
weird.
wouldn't.
That
That'd
would
be really
weird.
awkward.
So, it's important because identifying the sequence of events helps us as readers summarize what we've just read. It also helps us identify cause and effects of a story and draw a conclusion in the end after we finish reading. So, authors use events and sequences to help support the author's purpose. The word support is important because it doesn't exactly give us what the author means. It helps us draw inferences from the events that they've laid out in the text. We use sequence and events when reading and writing as descriptions of what we're reading to provide us important information about the text and to tell us how the events develop throughout the text. I haven't been able to talk all day to begin with.
Yeah, that's usually everyone.
So,
It's Friday.
extraneous information is the supporting information that makes up the details of any story. So, the information that is included in the story that isn't exactly relevant yet or needed, but it helps pull the whole story together. So our key events give us ideas about what the story is about, and the extraneous information pulls all the details together to give us one whole text. So, some of our major key words when we're using text and event sequencing are first, next, then, last, and finally, which are the words that you used in your do now. But we also see words such as soon after, afterwards, the next day, or if we're going in chronological order, we can use first, second, third, beginning, middle, end. And we also see them in descriptions of days, like tomorrow, yesterday.
But even yesterday, you come
Today. Yesterday does technically come before today. When we're reading non-fiction text, fiction text, such as fairy tales, we also see words like once upon a time and they lived happily ever after. These words are often used to describe the beginning and the end of a fairy tale. And although they're not extremely descriptive like first, next, then, and last, they're well known to be the beginning and the ends. So often we have trouble putting our sequence of events in order. This diagram gives us a good idea of how events occur throughout a story. So we have the beginning of our story. Normally, this provides us information on what we're going to be reading about or introduces the characters in a fiction story. But then we have events that occur throughout our rising action. These events are crucial because they begin to explain to us what happens during the climax, or the crucial decisions of a story. And then the events continue through the following action to tell us how our story is going to resolve, or what the conclusions we're going to come to. We have to be able to accurately put these events in order, or else we're not going to be able to understand what's happening during the plot and the climax, or why we came to the resolution that we did during the story's end. In informational texts, such as the one we'll be reading today, we can often use timelines to understand the events of an article. This includes dates or actual time during a story, like 12 o'clock or noon. These dates and keywords become relevant throughout the text and allow us to put them in a timeline to be able to move through the motions of the story. So, we are actually going to be reading a short story about the Titanic. I want everybody to have a highlighter. 4, 5, 6. So we're going to do a group read like we normally do. But as we're reading, I want you guys to go through and highlight significant dates or times that you think are important. You're welcome. Alright, would anybody like to start with the first paragraph? Damon?
The story of the Titanic is one of the greatest tragedies of the sea. Her tragic fate is also the basis for one of the most popular Hollywood movies of the late 20th century. One reason her story is so fascinating is that she represented the very best of available technology at the time. She was deemed unsinkable, yet 4 days after setting sail aboard the enormous vessel, some of the wealthiest and most influential people of the 20th century lost their lives.
Miles, can you pick up paragraph 2?
The Titanic was the largest and most luxurious ship in the world when she set sail on her first voyage on April 10, 1912. She stretched 882 feet in length, almost 3 football fields, and stood 11 stories high. She was believed to be the safest ship ever built. Within 96 hours, however, this most remarkable vessel would be resting 2.5 miles underwater on the floor of the Atlantic Ocean. Fewer than one third, 705 of the 2,228 people aboard this magnificent ship would survive to tell their stories.
Lacey, will you pick up paragraph 3?
One of the most disturbing things about this terrible tragedy is that it could have been avoided. The telegraph operator aboard the Titanic had received numerous warnings about huge icebergs from other ships navigating through the area off Newfoundland, Canada. The operator delivered the messages to the ship's captain. The captain, however, decided to keep the ship sailing at near top speed over 23 miles per hour. it was nighttime and difficult to see. By the time the crew realized an iceberg was looming directly in front of them, it was too late. They could not turn the huge vessel and avoid collision. At 11:40 p.m. on the night of April 14th, 1912, an iceberg grazed the side of the ship, causing her to take on water. 3 hours later, the Titanic was part of history. Over 1,500 people died in the icy waters that night. It would be 70 years before the remains of the Titanic would be discovered.
Joseph, can you pick up in 1985?
In 1985, Dr. Robert Ballard, a marine biologist and oceanographer, located the vessel. He kept his secret for 1 year to prevent treasure seekers from plundering the ship's booty. On his second visit, Ballard left a plaque honoring
Plaque of honor.
the plaque of honor in the 1,500 people who died that night and requesting that future explorers leave their grave undisturbed.
Perfect. Alright, so aside from the dates and times that you highlighted already, what are some key information that you think would be able to help us put a timeline in order from the time the Titanic left on its maiden voyage to the time that it sank? Miles?
It was the early 20th century, and within 96 hours it was already in the sun.
Okay, perfect. So 96 hours from the time that it left the harbor on its maiden voyage. That's important information. Anybody else? Miles?
Where it says it was 70 hours before the Titanic was actually discovered at the bottom of the ocean.
Okay, perfect. Lacey?
The telegraph operator was warned about icebergs before the ship collided with one.
Yes, that's important information. Joseph?
At 11:40 p.m. on the night of April 14th, 1912, the ship sunk.
Perfect. So, also, I think it's important to put that 3 hours later, the Titanic sank, and
I was just about to say
1,500
that.
people died in the icy waters that night. So that gives us a timeline from the time that it hit the iceberg to the time that it sank. Alright, so we are going to get in small groups. So Lacey, Delilah, Miles, and then Joseph, Kevon, Damon. In these bags are strips with information about the Titanic sinking. I want you both, the 6 of you in your groups, to try to put the timeline in order the best that you can.
Come on, let's go. Yeah. So,
Here's
so. Get all of them touched. 20 years in April 10.
Let's just go on fall.
One goes down here. Take this with us. 11. 54. Yes. 2.
18.
Yes. 4, 2. Keep on. These looking right to you, right? Wait, no. This is April April 20th, or no, April 10th, at noon. Then April 10th, 6 p.m. Then April 11th, 30 a.m.
Then we have April 11th, 14, 14, so 11:40 p.m. April 15th.
April 15th, or 10 a.m. April 15th to April 18th, then April 18th.
Alright, you guys good?
Yeah.
Okay. So now I want both of your groups to exchange answers with the other and see if you both came up with the same timeline.
April 12th, 1912, Titanic leaves the Southampton Indy first.
Is that what you guys have?
No, we don't have an April 12th.
April 10th, I said.
Oh, you said 12.
No, he said 10.
10th.
He said 1912.
Okay.
What time? Noon.
12.
Yeah,
12.
yeah,
Yeah,
we got it.
noon.
Okay.
Then we have April 10th, 6:30 a.m. or no p.m. Titanic stops in Cherbourg.
Yep. And then we have April 11th through April 14th. Titanic travels towards New York City. Passengers enjoy journey.
No, we have one before that, which is April 11th, 11:30 a.m.
Yeah,
We had them backwards.
Okay, that's fine. So what's the next one then?
the
you
one
think?
we just said.
Which one?
April
Yeah.
11th to April 14th.
Okay.
That was
Towards
next.
New York.
Okay. What about after that?
We have April 14th, 11:40 p.m. Titanic strikes iceberg.
Yep, we have that.
Boom.
What does your group have next, Damon?
We have April 15th, 12:25 a.m. Passengers begin to be loaded into lifeboats.
New York.
We have
April 15th, 2:20 a.m. Titanic sinks.
Yes.
Bye-bye.
Then we have April 15th for 10 a.m. Carpathia reaches survivors.
April 15th to April 18th, Carpathia sails towards New York.
April 18th, 9 p.m. Survivors arrive at New York.
Okay. Alright, can read them to me so I can put them in order on the smartboard?
Okay.
Alright, go ahead. If you think.
I'm sorry, I had to do that first.
Alright. Lacey, you wanna come up and put the next one in order?
The whole thing.
I know.
Okay, give everybody a chance. Miles.
Yeah.
Joseph, you wanna come up and put the next one in order?
Sure.
Damon?
This one.
Miles, take a seat, please.
I'm sorry, Bob. Okay.
Well, we got April through.
Iconic Sands and Ordeal.
Kimani?
Wait.
Okay.
Wait.
Where do you see a discrepancy, Lacey?
Iconic Sands is too much.
11:30, 11:40, and then this.
No, because that one starts on April
Look,
11th,
April
Lacey.
11th, April
Oh,
14th.
I was looking at the time.
So-
Never mind.
You
I
can
know, me
see
too.
why it's not always accurate to go based off of the times.
But you also
Because you also have to take into account the sequence of events which they happen. So, would it have made sense that the Titanic would have hit the iceberg before they started traveling towards New York?
Yes,
Yeah.
because there's more ice up.
up
Ireland.
But
It's
so,
like-
they
but they
hit
needed
it.
to begin.
Look, they
Go ahead.
they hit the iceberg, and they're still going to New York.
So, but
But
read our
the-
story.
but
The,
the-
Also,
the fact.
passengers-
Okay,
it says
have a
it
seat,
was
Damon.
Taking on water, so if
Ex-
what Damon's saying is true, there'd be no way that they were even near New York.
Right. So.
I'm not saying passengers enjoying journey isn't true. They were all happy until they realized that they were gonna die.
But our text tells us that initially they started heading towards New York. Then they hit the iceberg. And our text tells us again that they almost instantly started taking on water and their journey stopped. So, our sequence of events, they needed to travel first, then they struck the iceberg. Okay, can somebody come up and put the next one? Miles? Okay. Kimon, you wanna come put one in place? You can always reference your timeline on the table.
Who's this and who's this?
Alright, so does anybody see?
I do.
Alright,
Mhm.
Lacey, can you come up and,
Is that when he did that? The Comic Sans.
yep. So we need, oh, it's okay.
That's the Comic Sans kill you, David.
That's a
Alright.
nice design to it. Just clean
Come on,
everything down
Have a
first.
seat, please. We're talking about the Titanic. You need to stay on topic.
It's the font that
Oh,
I'm
yeah, it's
complaining
made.
about.
Okay, well, we all have our different choices of font, so we gotta kind of learn to acclimate a little bit.
How can I get into lifeboats before it starts sinking?
Because the captain knew that that it was taking on water.
Alright, so,
Because it hit the
Lyle, do you wanna
bottom.
come put the next one in order? They're already,
I'll be glad to.
Fine.
let Delilah. And Miles, be my guest. Alright, so, the Titanic leaves on its maiden voyage. We know that to be true. The Titanic stops in France to pick up more travelers,
That's
Then
more
it-
weight.
stops again in Ireland.
That's even more weight.
Then they head towards New York. New York was its final destination. Unfortunately, the Titanic strikes an iceberg.
Because they didn't want to listen.
Very good, because they had been given messages by the
By other
ships, and then
Captain
Telegraph
was like, yeah,
operator.
whatever.
so the captain said, "We're going to continue at full speed instead of slow down and be
Careful.
careful." So then,
And
The
look
type-
at how that turned out.
He's probably.
tragically,
He would have saved gas if he didn't even go complete.
so we'll get to that at another time. The Titanic strikes an iceberg. Finally, the captain says, "We can't recover from this," so they start loading into lifeboats.
Which they
Which-
weren't prepared for because they didn't have nearly enough lifeboats.
So unfortunately, our text didn't tell us that, and I couldn't find a story that did, but that is important as to why so many passengers died that night. They did not have
It's
enough
not-
They either
lifeboats
froze-
for
No,
the
it's
amount of
not.
people.
They
It's not
either
just
died of
because of that.
hypothermia
They
It's
or they
the
got
lifeboats
tired
that
of
they
treading
did
water
have.
and drowned.
They had too many.
So they didn't have enough lifeboats.
No, they had enough lifeboats for certain groups of people.
Right, because they didn't have enough lifeboats for everybody, because as our text told us, the ship was deemed unsinkable. They loaded the women and the children first to try to help them survive. So then, eventually, a second ship comes along. They hear the distress signal. They reach the passengers. They're able to save as many passengers as possible, and then the survivors finally survive in New York on the second ship because the Titanic
How did
sank.
the second boat not hit the iceberg?
Because
Alright.
It was probably
while
the
they
one
were
that
on
gave
rafts,
it.
they were probably trying
it
to
the
row
warning.
to shore as well.
Potentially. So,
Though
what I want
Is
you
that what
guys to
explains
do
why it was in the
the
season?
others
is
died.
write your own short story. I wanted to have at least 5 sentences that puts an event in sequence. Now, Remember, it needs to be school appropriate.
Now you really gotta make me think.
Wait, are we using that?
Yeah, you're gonna use those and the markers.
They overestimated themselves.
So, be creative. You can do it in your small groups or as a class as a whole. Which one would you prefer?
Class, so it can be just as weird as possible.
Alright.
Because it's more fun with friends.
Alright, name the first thing that pops into your head, Jason.
Alright, you guys need to delegate who's gonna
Because Damon
write the
has-
story.
Alright, what's the first thing that pops into your head, Damon?
Wait, I'm gonna write.
Lacey, you're gonna.
Alright,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
the first thing that popped into Damon's head was Kimon, what's the first thing that pops into your head?
So remember,
So the pineapple.
guys, remember your keywords. Use your sight words.
We gotta know what's the first thing that pops into your head.
Does this still have to do with the Titanic?
Nope,
No,
it can be
it
about
can be
anything.
anything.
Yeah, it can be about anything.
The world got attacked by a gigantic turtle.
Okay, what's the first thing that pops into your head?
We're gonna have a field day.
I don't
on
know.
this one.
Alright, what's the first thing that pops into your head?
Alien
Eagles
turtle.
fly.
Okay,
Alien turtle.
We gotta
I have an idea.
Alien turtle.
Alright, what's the second thing that popped into your head?
Bad turtle.
New York.
So I guess it's second.
So
I'm not gonna lie.
Seems
First
to be
thing that pops into
a
my
turtle theme here.
Yes. You know, New York, Mutant Ninja Turtles, kind of play each other out.
What? No, alien turtle.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Maybe it could be a twist.
Alien mutant turtles.
Thank
guys.
you.
Oh, Delilah.
There should be something happening before the alien turtles attack.
Okay, so it was
Pineapple. Hey.
everyone was outside.
It was a beautiful
enjoying-
spring
Okay,
day.
wait.
Yeah, there we go. Very
You
good.
guys didn't even get mine.
Oh, I'm sorry, Miles. What did
Alright,
you
somebody
want to say?
asked me what the first thing that popped into my head.
Was the
The
first thing that popped in your head?
I don't even know.
I don't even know.
Wait, guys,
It's like now I'm gonna
Okay.
be so honest
guys,
right now.
guys, wait.
Ready for this? It's
Yeah.
so dumb. Not even gonna think about
Do I want to hear it?
it. Yes, it's school of purple.
Just say it.
Oh my.
You ready?
Yes.
Go. Then I'll be
A boy coloring.
A boy coloring.
Wait, no.
A
No,
boy coloring.
Okay.
No, wait.
We need to do that.
No, it could be
Boy
it could be
coloring
place
a
in a
pineapple.
Hey, time out.
It could be one.
Lacey has the floor.
It could be one beautiful spring day. A
Kids
name
outside.
was coloring in his room when he noticed, and then we keep going on.
Very
okay.
good. All
We
right.
need to get details about
Write
how
that
this
down.
kid's outside
Different.
playing.
Actually,
There's
no,
one
but
boy that's
But
home.
forgot everyone else said. Alright, so first there was this
Oh,
little
shit.
boy. He was coloring a pineapple,
Yeah.
and when he got finished coloring it, he was looking for something else. Then he said,
Okay, so am I
Then he
writing?
heard something
Wait,
underneath
so
his bed.
then what? Do you want me to write?
What?
One spring morning, someone was drawing a pineapple.
"It's New York City. It's never beautiful there. All you hear is cars."
No, I said one spring morning.
Yeah,
All right, let's not get caught up on the logistics. Remember,
Okay,
we're writing a
We're
story.
trying to make this absurd.
Only-
am I writing that?
So a little boy sitting coloring.
Okay, but we have to use one
Yeah.
of those words. We have to use one of
First.
those words. That's the thing that you don't understand.
I created
First,
So,
I.
once upon a time, there
So,
also might be a good option.
Yeah, I
so
wanna start with
first
this
there
part.
was this young boy.
Hold on.
I'm gonna make the monster inside my head.
What?
Got it. It's gonna have 2 mouths,
Wait,
7 feet.
Are you good at drawing?
Dragons, yeah.
Drawing? No, him and Joseph could draw something
can
on
draw
a sheet
something
of
as well.
paper, and
I
then
like
we could put
drawing.
it down here, and we could do an illustration because it, like you said, only has to be
Yeah.
5
So
sentences.
who's gonna
Well,
draw?
we've only got
Thank you.
15 minutes
Huh?
left
I
though.
could
Who's
do
gonna
that.
draw the Ninja Turtles? I guess.
Them.
We've got
Them
15
two.
minutes.
Are they Ninja Turtles or are they
One
It's
alien
a
mutants?
little
it's
boy.
an alien mutant turtle.
Once I was
Okay.
at you.
Draw something weirdly.
So-
One,
So, just
time.
Yeah.
A little boy.
since you're
You
gonna
have to
draw
give
Why
us
would
a
you-
name.
monstrosities,
You can't just call him a boy.
What?
it's
Can we
eternal.
not start with the little boy though?
2 feet.
I got you. I got
What do you
you.
want to start with,
7
David?
legs,
I'm gonna
it's
start
also
with,
be 7 legs.
Something
Yeah.
about outside and then
Yeah.
talk
Okay.
about the
It-
going
okay.
over where the
Yeah.
boy-
What's a
Very
Absolutely.
good. Very good. So you could say
Little
once upon a
hands
time,
attached to
one
his
spring,
body
it was
with
a
no
one
arms.
spring sunny
Okay,
day.
tone it down.
But we have to
So
include
we're
a
not starting
pineapple.
Nothing.
You have to include a
Put it on
pineapple.
a lot of paper.
And then there's some dude named
Let's-
SpongeBob who lived in a pineapple. I don't know.
Alright. And then the critic
Should we
from Ratatouille comes in.
pineapples?
Turtle.
Do you like
What?
pineapples?
No,
Make
critic
it
from
shell.
I asked
Ratatouille.
everybody what was the first thing that popped into their head.
Okay.
That's what we were.
Make this as
gonna have
absurd as
to-
possible.
B-E-A-T-U.
Wait, what's the first thing that popped into your head?
Once upon a time, it was a beautiful day.
I-F-U-L.
And someone was drawing a beautiful pineapple.
No. B-E-A-U-T-I-F-U.
Yeah, that's right.
Then the
It's
critic
okay. Alright, so on
And
a
the critic
beautiful...
from Ratatouille comes in
It was a
and
beautiful
says,
spring day.
this
No, I
Yeah,
got
spring, why can't it be summer?
Or summer.
Okay, beautiful summer.
Why can't it be autumn?
But it wouldn't
This is
sound
alright,
right with
Josh.
day.
This isn't the final.
Calm down.
What's the
Okay,
first thing that
one
popped into your
beautiful
head?
spring morning. I mean
Yes.
summer morning.
So I guess we're the
Kids are
kids.
outside playing.
No, I guess we're the kids now because she's.
My first thought, the first thing that popped in my mind was you guys.
So we were coloring cartoons.
No, we have to put
and then the critic
Miss
from
McPhee's
Ratatouille
class.
comes in.
I was drawing Scooby Doo.
Miss Katie.
No.
Scooby
Yeah, it's my first name.
I've been in
We've been
the
over this.
animation department for like
Then
3
the
minutes.
critic from Ratatouille comes in.
Miss
At Ratatouille.
Mrs.
Beautiful summer.
P
I
M
did become summer.
C
We can make Miss P your
Capital
mom in the
P.
story, man.
Put my mom in
A
the story.
R
You.
Oh, me?
You as
Sure.
well.
L-I-N.
Oh, don't age me that far yet.
What's
Okay.
that?
Class
This. It's in the
was
year 20
coloring
XX,
cartoon.
so you've seen it.
Or it could be in class him coloring a pineapple.
Yeah, coloring cartoons. He was coloring SpongeBob.
That was a pineapple.
Yeah.
So is it
SpongeBob and his
SpongeBob walking?
pineapple.
So is it SpongeBob walking through the pineapple, or is he standing by the pineapple?
Alright.
When
So
all of a sudden
What was it?
No, then she looked at Joseph and he was drawing a pineapple.
Alright, let's underline our keywords too, so we know exactly.
Okay,
So,
wait, then I'm gonna use highlighter to just
okay, yep, that's fine.
Then
Should we put in the critic from Ratatouille the story?
We'll
no,
see if he fits.
no,
Okay.
no
Then-
Ratatouille.
coloring cartoons then.
Mrs.
Then a giant
McKee.
turtle from space came in and fighting Luke Skywalker.
AKA mom.
Miss P saw Joseph.
I got an idea.
Joseph.
Thank you.
S-E-P-H.
That feels good, not having a
So,
backward C or F.
Drawing
Why would there be a Z in your name?
a pineapple.
What would there be an F in your name?
Because PH sounds like F, so Joseph.
Wait, let's make the story the largest crossover ever.
How about let's just stick to our keywords, come on, let's
Now I make you
Alright.
look
Once
like
upon a time, it was a beautiful
Yeah.
summer morning. Miss McFarland's class was coloring
Is this
cartoons.
the alien?
Then Miss
Draw
McPee's
another ship.
Miss
Is this
McPee
the alien?
saw Joseph
I'm not
drawing a
changing it.
pineapple.
Alright, so what else? What happened? What comes next, guys?
Oh, you forgot another period.
No clue.
What comes next? What's gonna happen after I see Joseph coloring a pineapple?
Next.
Then we heard a loud sound.
Very good.
And
Then we
the
heard
school
a loud
lockdown.
sound and it was Miles going, oh.
No, I think it was the killer alien turtle, right?
No, we've
Killer
got
alien turtle.
They heard a loud noise outside of the school, so they
Then we
they
heard
to go on lockdown.
a loud sound.
Which made the school go on lockdown, man.
Sound
Sound.
from a King Kong sized turtle.
Thanks, Lucy, for
Meanwhile,
highlighting the thens and what's
Delilah was
my point.
freaking out.
Meanwhile, Miles was still sitting there like, and Delilah was
From
like,
From what?
From a
so
window
from what?
seal.
Like, what's
From
going
a-
on?
from a small mutant terrorizing
No.
turtle.
Wait, no.
A
You're
small
not supposed to
mutant.
go into that yet.
Okay.
No, you don't know what it is yet.
From an
something
anonymous
mysterious.
object.
From something mysterious, okay.
I love
an
that.
anonymous from
Yeah,
an
that's-
anonymous.
From an unknown.
From an unknown source.
Well, if
From
you
an
want
unknown
to use those little vocabulary words,
Bird
then
like
fine.
eye
Anonymous.
with a kraken beak and arm with crab
A crab pincher.
arm, turtle shell.
Really? You're making it that big?
Alright,
Yeah,
well
of
let's help
course.
our classmates.
His balloon head.
Guys, let's help finish
Okay.
the story. Okay.
You want to say
So remember your words.
Then
How about after?
a good one. After that, soon
Soon
after.
after that.
Yep.
And
Everyone
then
went
soon we
home.
saw it, and then people were investigating it and saw a giant ball.
That you, Mikey?
All right, guys.
And
All right, guys. Let's focus. We've only got a few minutes left to finish up.
Soon after that,
What did we?
everyone went home
It was
and
a weird cylinder.
Delilah was like,
What did we see? What did
Soon after
It was
that.
a cylinder.
you saw it. We saw.
Five, 5 sentences. So
we saw.
we're on our
this.
4th sentence.
What already?
Yes. We saw what? What did we see?
A cylinder.
A turtle.
A metallic
Yelling.
cylinder.
How about just
A turtle yelling.
Large
Is that you, Mikey?
Large, good describing word.
monster
Large turtle.
that looked like a turtle.
A
Okay.
large
Yeah.
turtle-looking monster.
That
was
turtle looking?
It was
he did
alienated.
draw
It was alienated from the rest of its group because it was like it looked like this.
Are we gonna make this like the little toaster? There once was a turtle who wasn't like the other turtles.
Okay.
Okay, sorry. Back to the.
Okay,
Wait,
you need to
so-
start drawing.
Reread that sentence.
Like this?
Yeah,
I'll
draw that down
Soon
here.
after that,
Okay, I'll
we
read
saw.
it.
A
Stop.
large
What?
monster that looked like a monster.
That looked like. Oh my
Yep.
god. No.
It's okay.
No, just cross it out and write it. on
Why are
top
there
of
so many dot 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 dots?
It looks like a turtle.
it. It's a
All right.
pause.
How are we gonna finish it?
And let's wait. Let's
the
read
kid-
it to make sure it makes sense though.
Half the
You can
kids
add
were
in
go-
a second sentence or an additional sentence if
You have
you
to
need
make
one
it-
before
Please.
your final resolution.
Finally, before the alien decided
Four
to do
of the
anything,
6
we put
kids
it in
were
a toaster
freaking out.
oven.
No.
No,
Give me something that describes
He
what's
burnt it
gonna
with, like,
happen
over-
before our
he burnt
resolution.
it
So
with
what
an
does
oversized
what does the
flamethrower.
alien do and how does the story end?
They try
Um,
to get in,
alright,
in,
wait,
in
wait.
our classroom.
The story ends by we burning it with an oversized flamethrower.
School appropriate.
Well, if
What
it's
is?
looking for Mikey, why don't we just give him his turtle back?
Just make unique.
He wants Mikey.
Oh yeah, we have a
and
pet
Mikey
turtle.
is
We're
our
pet
pet
turtle, so
turtle.
we give him the pet turtle that we had.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
I'll use
what
this
needs
one.
to happen before we give him the pet turtle back?
No, you gotta draw it.
So we need to
like
explain
that.
what
Well, I gotta draw like.
the monster was looking for.
His pet.
Alright.
His
friend
pet,
Mikey.
his
Draw his
Brother.
feet.
Okay,
His
his
little-
brother
his
Mikey.
little turtle friend. Okay. so-
Meanwhile,
But no, I'm
the
not
Very
angry
good.
monster
Meanwhile,
is frantically looking.
Then you can draw the body.
Miss McFarland's class decides to come up with a solution.
Okay. So meanwhile,
how do we know what it
the monster is frantically looking for his
I gotta
little
draw the
brother,
border between the shell
Turtley.
and,
No, his little
Don't
brother
draw that.
Sam.
and then
No, that makes
what
no
happens
sense.
next?
His little brother's name is Mikey, obviously.
Okay,
Oh,
Mikey.
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 Okay, Mikey.
All right. So then what? How do we end it? So after. So
Michael.
finally, how do we? Finally,
Finally, after
I'll draw
giving
inside of it.
Mikey
No,
over,
we're just saying he's the stolen from this.
Half
the
of them
mutant
were
turtle.
like,
Does he leave?
No. Yes, he leaves.
leaves.
the large
he leaves while
monster
the classroom.
leaves
It
And
took
goes
Miss
back to his
McFarland with
planet.
him.
and goes
It
to.
took Miss
His
McFarland
home.
with him.
I am appalled by that.
given
So Alan,
protein.
Is that what you think of me?
No.
Okay, thanks.
I'm sorry I don't have enough room for the class.
Wait, why did Mr. Norman in the story?
You didn't include Mr. Norman in the story. You could have included Mr. Norman in the
And
story.
he's
He's just
doing
sitting
nothing.
there.
What
All right.
He said the principal.
No, what
So-
made a mask came in? It's just a
Let's-
Scooby-Doo version.
Let's review our final story.
Okay, I'll start reading.
Okay.
Wait a second, I'm not done.
No, it's fine because I'm starting from the beginning. Once upon a time, it was a beautiful summer morning. Miss McFarland's class was coloring cartoons. Then Miss McP saw Joseph drawing a pineapple. Then we heard a loud sound from an unknown source. Soon after that, we saw a large monster that looked like a turtle. Meanwhile, the monster was yelling, "Mikey, where are you?"
Okay. So what happens next?
Alright, and then suddenly,
Suddenly, that's a great word. It's not on our list, but it is a
are you
really
sure about that?
yes. Actually, is it on our list?
Look over on the right side.
Sure
Suddenly.
is. Sure is on our list. Good pointing out there.
Suddenly,
He stole our turtle.
Miles
It was her class pet.
and Damon
Rewind.
are sitting there.
You should say when some of us were laughing at it because it was ugly.
It was
You're mean.
That's very.
You're
not
so
very
mean.
nice. Not very nice.
It
But it's
kinda
not a
sounds like
human,
a
it's
class
It's
though.
an
I
animal
think
thing.
them drawing that is pretty funny.
That is
Yeah.
a pretty funny illustration.
Yeah, just to go along with the story,
Yes.
just for a laugh.
Yeah, because this is already going well enough.
This is for lulz.
Exactly.
But then again,
That's
what
the
we
idea.
should-
I was happy the entire time.
He gave me
This is school where we're learning about giant mutant turtles and the suffix of that.
Is she nice?
I'll start you not.
Yeah, I don't stay down there.
Yeah,
I do
nice.
makeup.
Draw.
Yeah.
Now,
No, I got an idea.
No, let me draw its squiggly arm.
Oh.
Alright, so
Got y'all two of them on this
What-
plane.
what describing word, what sight word can we
You'll be like
use?
this.
Finally,
No.
we gave him.
We gave him back his.
Finally,
Uh-huh.
I got you.
Finally, he ripped
Whatever.
No, hold on. Let me draw.
Yes.
the roof off.
Wait, building.
Jeez, how tall is this thing?
Really tall, but
This is-
that's our
Sure,
building.
I thought, yeah, that's fine.
To give
This
should do
Friday
little
or
people
all
outside.
Friday?
give
I'm building.
It would just be a dash.
Mikey.
Okay, so I've got, I'll be doing every
But I
Friday,
just-
CR?
But Miles.
Keeping this drawing.
Alright, let's
Give
But
him.
Miles.
keep it on topic.
But Miles just ran up to him.
And
Alright, no, we
And
need to,
gave him the
we need
turtle.
to, we need to come up with our conclusion.
But Miles just.
No,
But
no.
Miles just ran up to him and gave him the
close those
turtle.
windows again. and do-
So let's find a better way.
Oh,
But
So-
Miles
and
And turn them into turtle soup.
decided to hand Mikey over.
Hey. Alright, alright, so I don't recall that, I don't have a problem with it, that's fine. But I didn't,
Okay.
the only conversation we had with Mr. Steele was taking care of it.
Alright, so what's our last sentence gonna be? How are we going to conclude our story?
At the end, well,
And soon
afterwards,
later,
everybody
Oh, I thought it was
lived.
just for this, okay.
Everybody
Alright.
Live.
I-
had
soon
a scar
later,
for life.
the months
Okay,
that
That's
keep
fine,
on, how's it
you're good.
going?
Yeah, that's
Everybody
perfect.
lived happily ever
I'm
after.
out, I'm done,
AKA scared
I'm outta
for
here.
life.
Gone.
Scarred for life.
Scared.
scarred.
And
Scared
scarred,
for life.
potentially both.
I'm
So,
scared
I
for
would
my
say
life,
both
okay?
because like a huge turtle monster just like came out of nowhere.
Rose up from the sewers.
So
Oh my
everyone
God.
lived happily ever after.
Sorry for the bottom out here.
And they're scared for
Oh
their
my
life,
God, is that
okay?
guy is-
Alright guys, the bell's getting ready to ring in 2 minutes.
Can
Let's
I put
clean up.
AKA scared for life?
Sure.
Yeah.
Can everybody
Scared for life.
um give me their due nows?
You need or you can do scarred.
Can you put them in a pile with your readings on the front table for me?
Wait, do you want to put my name on it?
Yes, please. Put your names on them.
For life.
As your-
Look at this thing.